Welcome to Blogtown. My name is Fatima and I'm going to be your host today. I'm very excited to be here and I'm standing right in Valley Village. So Blogtown is going to be a show that is going to be featuring local talented Winnipeg bloggers. We're going to keep it 100% local and it is going to be fabulous. So for the very first edition of Blogtown, I am going to be talking to Lisa Nielsen. She's a vintage fashion blogger. So we're going to be talking about the world of fashion blogging, and she's going to give us tips on how to find vintage finds. So do you consider yourself a vintage fashion blogger?
I do. That's what I call myself. Just because, and I'm not one of those bloggers that tries to replicate a period look from head to toe every day. I'm really more interested in repurposing vintage fashion and making it look modern and fresh, mixing it with new pieces, mixing it with expensive pieces, mixing it with bargain pieces from say Joe Fresh or Forever 21, and I'm really interested in an eclectic look with a real retro feel to it. And this tucked into a skirt would be really beautiful and would give you that 50s housewife kind of look. So when you're out shopping, you don't have to be looking for authentic 50s vintage pieces. Knowing the cut and the construction or the colors that are indicative of the era that you're interested in can help you find modern alternatives that will incorporate into your vintage wardrobe. So that's a really beautiful, great piece, even though it's not technically vintage.
Well, some people are a little bit intimidated by vintage fashion. So can you just break it down to me a little bit? What is vintage fashion and how do you go about it to even start?
Well, there's a couple of terms if you're thinking about something as far as vintage is technically something that's more than 30 years old. So it's kind of crazy, 80s is almost becoming vintage right now, which is kind of scary to me. But so something maybe in the 90s, 20 years ago is considered retro, and anything more than 80 years is considered antique. So if you want like a hard and fast rule about what vintage is, that's kind of the general consensus about what vintage is. And this would have been something that, it's not a high-end item, it's not a designer item, and this is the kind of detailing that you don't get on modern clothes these days. So so it's an indication that this is a vintage piece. Also, real fur. Real fur is coming back in fashion right now, but coats with a real fur collar on an everyday kind of coat is an indication that this is a vintage piece. My blog's name is Butterflies and Daisies Vintage, and I've been interested in vintage fashion and wearing secondhand clothes for a really long time, since I was 14. I discovered and found fashion blogs online, and because I have an interest in fashion, they really took me, and I thought, well, I could do this. So my first blog, I had a blog previous to this, I was taking pictures with my phone camera and posting them online, and I was starting to get interested. I thought, oh, this is something. So then after that I bought a camera, and then eventually Butterflies and Daisies Vintage was born, and here I am. When I look at something like this, a lot of people might think that's a really ugly, boxy thing and nobody would want to wear it. But you think over a really great black sheath, you could throw your belt over it like this, and all of a sudden you have this really great little wrap coat. So looking and shopping for vintage is also about thinking outside the box and thinking about how, you can interpret something old, looking at something new, right? The other thing is that for $5, if you wanted to crop the sleeves on this jacket or, take it up a little bit or move the pockets up and make it into a cropped coat, if you have altering skills, that's always an option as well.
And what's the process? How do you get fresh content, and, how do you get inspiration for your blog?
Two-part question. Well, it is hard work, but it is fun. Sometimes, if I'm doing an outfit post, usually it takes about 3 hours. Sometimes I do really quick inspiration posts, and they can take somewhere from 15 to 20 minutes. And sometimes I do really lengthy. One of the features of my blog is Winnipeg Vintage Reviewed, so I review vintage clothing stores in the city, and those take field trips, get to go out to the shop, get a feel for it, and then I have to sit down and I do a lot of editing on those reviews. Sometimes I spend hours combing through them and rewriting them, so it's a lot of hard work, but it's fueled by my passion, so I enjoy it. It's my downtime. It's sitting at home with a cup of coffee and my computer in my lap, and just doing what I love. So These are actual snakeskin, I think. Yeah, absolutely. So you can just tell that they're real. You run your finger along it and you can feel the ridges where the scales are. And again, if labels are everything, you can see that the labels, look don't look modern. Another indication of a vintage shoe is again materials. Materials are everything. They have a leather sole, and they're stamped there. You can see, and obviously they have a leather and snakeskin upper. So those are really beautiful actually, and they're a 37A, so they're a narrow, but at a size 7, definitely someone with smaller feet than me could fit them.
Well, thanks for watching Blogtown. I've had fun being your host today. Make sure that you check out Lisa's blog, Butterflies and Daisies Vintage. And also make sure that you like us on Facebook and you can follow us on Twitter. Until next time, happy blogging!